Afrobarometer. I've looked at the last year's results. You see, that's why I've told you, is that those findings are normally manipulated by intelligence and the deep state. And there is a sea of difference between data findings and data presentation. I've looked at last year's results. This Uganda is an amazing country.
You mean there was a survey last year?
No. Last election is results.
Last election, okay.
Last election is results. After President Yoweri Museveni, he gave himself, okay, for 58.38%. The National Unity Platform, led by President Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, scored 35.08. The third category that came third in that election were invalid votes, okay, which were 33.66. Then you go to Amoriat. So invalid voters were more than those who turned up to vote for Mao and to vote for all these other candidates. So in a country where the third category is of invalid votes, then you treat data very carefully. But also, the one who presented this data could have chosen to say Museveni support has declined. That's a finding. And the opposition support has increased. He chose to say the other. So just disregard that Afro thing. It's just a preparation, as Ssemuju has done, a psychological preparation of a country for an eventuality that will happen when rigging has taken place. Elections in Uganda are now fought on 4 co-op by NRM, which you have to overcome. The first pillar is fear and intimidation. Can they for once organize an election where there is no fear and intimidation? The second pillar for which they anchor the election is vote buying, vote bribery. To the extent I know, in the last year's election, in every village on a voting day, they sent money there to really go and buy votes in a presidential election. Not only that, you'll see, Honorable Ssemuju is now a shadow minister for finance. You are going to see an escalation of classified spending in every year when we are moving towards the election calendar. It will hover around 5 trillion from about 2.something3 in the non-election. Why? That whole money goes into voter bribery. The other one is outright rigging and falsification of results. Then the Afrobarometer thing, disinformation. So those are the...
So the same factors are still alive.
So if you are going to confront NRM, if you are going to confront Museveni and his regime, you have to deal with the army. There is always a form that where they will beat you. At one time it was Kalangal Action Plan under Kakoza Mutale. Then this time they are now deploying JAT. But this is pre-election. They are deploying JAT. There was a time when they had Chiboko Squad. Chiboko Squad was there. Then Kayura unleashed crime preventers. At every turn of election, NRM has never gone for an election without a militia behind, without an outright force intimidating people. So our declaration of a protest vote is that we are going to defy those odds. We shall have to mobilize the country to surmount those challenges. Okay,
there is this ambiguity that actually Honorable Mbidde hinted on. Protest vote, does it mean you're boycotting?
Get him right. He said if you give it a literal meaning, it will mean that. But said
practically speaking, you want people to walk to the ballot.
We want people to walk to the ballot, knowing there will be heavy deployment, there will be intimidation, there will be all those other challenges, there will be voter bribery, there will be vote rigging, and the challenge is how do you surmount? And as Honorable Ssemuju just told you, regimes, and I'm watching this regime very carefully, but it's from so many fronts. One, I'm watching geopolitics. what is happening in Sudan, in Congo, and what is going on, how will it impact on our local politics? Me and Ssemuju are also watching carefully how the economy is reacting to those challenges. We are near economic collapse as a country. So when you look, and then the population, you are dealing with the population. A President Yoweri Museveni, Ugandans that are above the age of 80 are not more than 150,000. Go and study the population figures. His age mates, 70% of the population are below the age of 35. Definitely there is going to be a reaction to that. And you are going to deal with that scenario. So we are fired up as the opposition, the young people. We are fired up, those old people with
Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi, do you believe in elections?
I do. I'm a product of an election. But you see, what it took me to come to Parliament, everyone here was in my by-election. Honorable Ssemuju was literally my chief campaign agent there. Honorable Mbidde was nearly imprisoned there. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be. Narukola, had Narukola faced that challenge, and not in a by-election where all of us were there, he would maybe have lost it. He could have been stolen away from him. So should that be the normal thing? The Kawempe scenario, because all of us had to be there in the Tare Center, in Imbogo, to simply inspire people to stand up and be strong. The entire opposition was there in some form. Therefore, in a generation, Honorable Narukola will not see the light of day if he was isolated as a single actor. But shouldn't be the normal thing.
When someone drums up that mantra of election, vote by protest, it suggests that things are not going to be as normal as they have traditionally been. Do you look at 2026 as a bloody affair?
First of all, by their own description, no election in Uganda recently has been smooth. So you ask, how did they win? So, by their own description, it hasn't been smooth. So in a sense, they are saying the election is going to be the same or similar. From him, he gave you 4 things.
The 4 pillars.
The 4
Fear,
pillars.
vote buying, rigging, and disinformation.
Yes. Nobody has been on intimidation, harassment, haranguing than opposition. You remember, since the vote in Parliament of the age limit, one of the reasons that made the Muwanga Kivumbi succeed was actually intimidation in Buganda, where they succeeded, haranguing NRM candidates and supporters. Even just putting on a yellow dress was enough for Muwanga Kivumbi's group to beat you up and scare you away from the polling station. Even the opposition groups that were not ameliorating to them, like my brother there, you can see he is holding his chin. One of the reasons he has, literally speaking, he hasn't been touching nope from close range, is that he didn't believe, he hasn't, I don't think he's, if he does so now, maybe because he has been intimidated. But from what Mukasa Mbidde has been saying on the media, you clearly see somebody who has trepidation about nope politics in this region, whether it is on the ground, in the media, and so on. He knows that they pounce on you if you try to disagree with them. So, and I had said earlier on in my first submission, I said there are clearly areas of concern. Honorable Ssemuju takes issue with my recent writing.
You know, I'm very happy.
And I'm saying...
He's congratulating you.
And I'm saying that should be the ideological position of a true NRM ideologue. What does NRM stand for? Clean politics. What are elements of clean politics? This mischief that is going on in our election, our politics, that they have ably described here. That's not what NRM stand for. When we go for politics, we say we are going for clean politics. And therefore, if there are elements from NRM...
Do you realize we are all surprised that today you're preaching against mischief?
Yes, if there are elements in the government that NRM is the leader of, who go beating up people at election, real NRM people should not associate with it. So a real NRM ought to publicly condemn. Yes, those who enjoy fora where they discuss SEC members, members of the caucus, should go to that fora and discuss it. But if things have been done in the open, it is critical, it is prudent that NRM leaders should speak against it publicly, so that the world knows that that is not what NRM stands for.
It's amazing that
yes, that's,
has changed tone.
No, I am an ideologue of I'm not just a spokesperson, I'm an ideologue.
So you're representing the bitter members of the NRM who feel that the party has gone off the rails.
No. You as a DP member...
Pun intended.
No, not pun intended. You're a DP member.
Fine.
But our moderator, you can say bitter. NRM people don't have to be bitter to speak the truth, to see the wrong. No. We should speak from our ideological commitment, position, what we stand for. And that's why you see Ofonopo doesn't have qualms. That's why you see President Museveni stands in the public and says, this is bad, this is bad, this is... When
Opondo, you're now speaking for the disgruntled NRMs.
No. I am speaking for...
Actually, they say patriotism is defending your country even against your own government. Maybe it's being...
Ideological clarity. Practical clarity. That's what any reasonable NRM member, let alone a cadre like me, ought to speak publicly the truth.
Ssemuju is very
so, and you see, Ssemuju should be scared.
The Mushegas, everybody were complaining that NRM was abandoning the ideals is speaking to today. It was Ofonopondo, Biaruhanga, Fox Odoi, who were haranguing them.
No, you didn't understand. You didn't understand. what we disagreed with them and what we disagreed with them then and even now was stabbing NRM in the back. Going into a meeting, you agree or you keep silent. Now when you come here, then you disagree with the position you took part in. The decision you took part in. You remember our disagreement with my disagreement with the Right Honorable former Speaker. We said, no, you can't come to SEC, you agree on one position. When you go in the public, you see something else. That's where we disagreed with the Right Honorable Kategaya and others. Honorable Mbidde.
Honorable Mbidde, you're itching to say something. Just a second. Can we interrupt you?
By the way, I'm about to congratulate for joining a long list of all of those that were actually citing very critical information against the NRM. I had once warned here that the president of Uganda runs the NRM government as a pendulum swing, swinging from absolutism to democracy, and from democracy back to absolute dictatorship. In fact, the speed with which it swings to both ends is the same. And what now the NRM people are supposed to do is to cling on. And whoever, instead of clinging on, you start gazing upwards, you fall off. You become dizzy and fall off. Mbidde fell off. Honorable Kategaya fell off, Honorable Mbabazi did so, Besigye did so, Mugisha Muntu, now, almost, because now he's about to join the list, and we will welcome you, by the way, very seriously, because
you are with us this side. Honorable Mukasa Mbidde, are you not with us this side?
This side, yeah, we are now together. so and we welcome you. In fact, for me, I'll sponsor the cake cutting for OO, because now you have recognized the true ideology of how Uganda was fought for, liberated, and should be run. Things that the NRM government has long skedaddled from, and that is where we all lie. That is why we go to the polls, because we believe that the first point of democracy as the 10-point program is still applicable. But we discover even after polls that it wasn't respected after all.
Why would you fault me?
I'm not faulting you, I'm welcoming you.
If the first point of NRM point program is restoration
of democracy,
of popular and participatory democracy.
Yes.
And some elements, maybe few of them, or even if there were many, even if there were many, diluting it, why would it be a problem to speak about them? You see,
it is you're concerned about the direction the party is taking.
Like the things that Ugandans saw in Kivumbi. No reasonable NRM should defend it.
So the president is
no. So
the president,
if you have correct, accurate information, we should be the first one to speak against them, so that we deny ground to the Muwanga Kivumbi.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, I think this is very interesting, and in a way,
provided you have
it is twisting
information.
the discussion.
Yes. So, but anyway, you had asked defiance. I had said earlier on that if there are things that are not going on well, which we know, many of us recognize, NRM is open to have discussion. Hopefully we can build convergence on the things that need to be done right, and we do them right. That's why I'm saying the talk of Muwanga Kivumbis, of vote by protest. Not in the sense of Mbidde, but protest of defiance of belligerence. Probably we don't even need to reach there, because NRM should be able to listen to those things, and we are the ones in charge.
So you imagine the ground is right for the populace to vote by protest against the things, the evils that the NRM is committing.
NRM should not allow the population to vote by protest. And I do believe NRM has all the flexibility, all the levers to deny the Muwanga Kivumbis the ground they want, the way we denied FDC that ground. And by denying FDC that ground, you have seen where FDC is. Just by denying them that ground. We bought it. Yes. So if we bought it, yes, you have yourself to blame, to have leaders that are buyable.
If I have a robber, so I blame myself.
Honorable Lydia Wanyoto,
you should blame yourself for
given what is currently obtaining the evils or the failures of the NRM, don't you think they would make a protest vote valid and tenable under the circumstances?
We are preparing for elections. We are not aware of the protest vote, but you see, politics and elections are like maybe a game. We shouldn't look like we are going to war and we also protest. We do not support this is a civil exercise. We do not support fights, violence in this exercise. But you see, when you are preparing for, let me say, is it boxing? When you are preparing for boxing, there are these ones who come and show you their muscle, they begin scaring, but when you got the ring, they fall on the first fist. So there are people who are talking too much on how they are going to protest, on how they are going to show down. But the NRM for us, we are...
Remember the coffee debate, the first man to run away was this one.
So for us, we are preparing for elections, And by May, we are going to begin our internal exercises. That's not for me to announce. We have the Secretariat and the Commission that's doing that. But you see, I hear a lot of talk, the Baganda Sebeweda, they are showing muscle, they are scaring, they are telling us how they are going to give us a shutdown. We are ready. The roadmap is out of the National Electoral Commission. Our own roadmap of NRM is about to start. We are anytime it is going to be announced and launched. And then let the best man or woman win. Let the best protest come out. Because now we don't want to preempt what the other people in the boxing ring are bringing. Maybe they have better strokes, they have better fists, they have better muscles, we don't know. But when they punch us and we fall down, we shall concede. When we punch them, they should also concede. Because they are coming to the boxing ring. They have because they come here and say talk, but they participate in the election. In 1980, and it is all likes giving the history, even I think all of you. In 1980 or before 1980, there were actual protesters. Some of them resigned from cabinet, like President Museveni. They refused to participate in the government. They went and fought their way to change the status quo. Now you are here when you win an election. Say, I suffered but I won. You go and form government. You are part of government. So you quarrel, but again tomorrow you're in government. You quarrel. So let's wait and see how you're going to win, by quarreling, by threatening. But when you come to the boxing ring, we shall see how much your muscles can give us a fist to fall down.
Honorable Ssemuju.
That's the way I see it, and I'm listening, and I'm wondering what it is. Because back at home where I've come from, for us, we are ready. We know we are going for a contest, and we are preparing. And may the best man or woman win the next election.
Honorable Ssemuju, the National Unity Platform is no stranger to sloganeering. Could this be just one of them?
No. I said in my submission that what we went through the time we are leading the opposition, they will go through it. What we said they will say, because the conditions they face are conditions we faced. The words may change, the profiling and prescription may change. But as long as you go into an election with an incumbent who wants to raid the central bank, who wants to use the military, the police, there is a natural reaction to all those conditions. But also, your campaign is not just a campaign at a podium. Please come on voting day and vote for me and go home and sleep. Even when you get I have been sleeping in Wakiso Terrace End. I shouldn't. You know, the last election, I had 186 polling stations. I lost at only one with one vote. But I still had to go and sleep at the terrace end. And
for 3 nights.
For 3 nights, just to get declared. And this is in an urban setup. So in rural areas, it can get worse. I remember one time, Honorable Livingstone Okero called from Muchwa. There were no radio stations. He got beaten. He had to tell his story after elections because he said, if I leave now, it will get worse. So let me hang on. Until he came here with the photos of people who are blooded, they had been beaten. And I agree with everybody, that's not the election that we should have. Unfortunately, that's the election that we have.
Okay. Do you imagine the opposition is now at a crossroads on whether to participate in an election whose outcome is more or less predictable, or to boycott?
I have said, at the expense of repeating myself, if you want to fight for freedom, you will do what is within your means and then pray that the conditions will favor you. And that's why I was using the rebel groups in Syria. They knew that overrunning Bashar al-Assad was almost impossible, but they didn't give up. So they continued organizing until the conditions changed. And the moment they realized that the conditions have changed, they started walking up to Damascus. And that's why I was telling Ofono Pondo, we don't have to go that road. In Libya, same story. Gaddafi brutalized everybody. J. Rawlings in Ghana did the same thing. So was Mugabe. But the moment conditions changed, all these fellows were removed. There are conditions that may not be in our favor at the moment, but those conditions are not permanent. They will change.
Honorable Mbidde, do you feel persuaded to coalesce with the National Unity Platform, maybe to better their new phrase or their new strategy?
Yes, completely. I would say yes, because I think we need to choreograph the protest process within the working meaning that we have adopted. There are countries where, of course, a protest has worked. When you look at Senegal, the current president was not the intended winner. The man who was actually the ringleader of the opposition was Sonko, but he had been taken to prison. Then there was a process that had been geared towards declaring Wadde's son as a candidate, where also the Reasonable Electoral Commission declared him a non-citizen because he was born out of the country. To the extent then that the independent guy had to be supported in protest and won. So I can tell you it can be framed. Number two, when you look at the election we are going for, and I think we need to fixedly also take stock of Honorable Wanyeto's submission. The peremptory procedure has always been that the winners prepare to take an oath of office, join opposition, and ultimately form part of government. And I think this has to change, because it is only a result of a wrong election, but where a few by chicanery have been allowed to take oath of office to punctuate the process of government as if it has opposition, government, and generate a hodgepodge of nonsense that we can call a government in Uganda. Now, the election you go for, where JAT can even allow somebody to vote or not, where results of that election, those that do not know how to tick the ballot come third in a general election, then you know that kind of election is full of estoppels. We can call them blockades, facilades, fanfaronades, and gasconades. It is an election that is actually not an election. It is a banned election, but within the precincts of a figment, some posturous activity that somebody would want to call an election for purposes of international, generating a clean name that we have got an election calendar in Uganda. Therefore, we are democratic. Something I have already called a democradula here, not a democracy. Once you know you are headed for that, then we must now plan a phase. The process of protesting has to be phased, it has to be planned, and it cannot be done by one political party. One tree is not a forest. So I think this is where we need to work together, all of us, to the extent that we can now.
Do you feel excluded? Do you feel left in the cold as colleagues in the opposition?
We feel disjointed, not excluded. There would not be pontification here, because now nobody knows who will win on the opposition, except the fact that we know who will be declared. Because the person declaring has been appointed by a candidate, and you know that he is not at liberty to declare anything to the contrary. Probably they must even rehearse the process of declaration of results. Because now, with that kind of body politic in the country, you know that the opposition will need to work together.
Thank you. Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi, it looks like fait accompli that Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi is the presidential candidate for NUP come 2026. Is this true?
Yeah, by all parameters, he will be the president.
What happened to internal processes?
Anybody who wants to contest against him, declare and contest. The other time Andrew Mwenda tried but abandoned the process. So definitely we've taken that decision.
You as
the part of the leadership, we have taken a decision that we shall field a presidential candidate, and there is one willing.
I thought a candidate emerges out of the delegates.
Forget about, deal with the reality.
You have your processes.
For example, before you take me to that angle, there are three choices the country can make, and the country must face them. We either say the answer to a bad man with a gun is a good man with a gun, as the Americans say. If you have bad men with guns, let good people have guns and sort them out. It's the choice the current leadership, an option they decided to take 40 years or 40 so many years ago. They saw what was happening in the country. They said, this one, we will sort it out through acquiring arms. So the democratic seeking forces have the option on the table to say, okay, fine, you are not going to roll members over us, you are not going to use jet over us. Okay, let's organize. Defeating us is a different matter. You say, okay, let us pick arms. But the country has been there. And we chose, me and others, chose not to take that route. The second route is to say, second option is that, well, we surrender. It's game over. These guys have overwhelmed us. And you give it up. And you go down in the annals of history as betrayers. The third option is what we've chosen to take, is that you can approach Mountain Elgon from any direction, but it remains Mountain Elgon, and you have to deal with it. So we've decided in our own ways is that irrespective of how difficult the journey will be, we are going to soldier on through a protest vote. The question is, has it succeeded anywhere?
Does the ground favor you?
No. Has it succeeded anywhere? Two things. Has dictatorship ever succeeded anywhere? This kind of brutality, maiming, intimidating people, bribing them, has it succeeded anywhere? I can tell you from all research, it has always ended in gross failure. The most advanced that had nuclear weapons was Russia. Okay? The most advanced dictatorship ever been assembled and acquired nuclear weapons, it was defeated by Boris Yeltsin standing on the very tank that the communists had manufactured to brutalize people in Moscow. He stood on that very tank. As the Honorable Ssemuju have said, conditions can quickly change. The
most recognized forms of protests are normally either blank votes, null ballots, spoiled ballots, none of the above, or voting for a fringe candidate or party or the less preferred candidate, or an organized protest or a declined ballot. Which of these are you?
Don't be academic. Stop reading Google.
Okay, let's be practical.
Listen to what we have told you.
Okay,
manufactured.
Let's be practical. You want to overwhelm.
You are asking Mr. Google to give you an answer. The question I'm discussing is that, and I want to give this intellectual depth, has dictatorship succeeded anywhere? But to detriment of those who think they benefit from dictatorship, they should ask themselves, as you are building a dictatorship, where has it ended? Where has Mobutu ended? Where has Gaddafi ended? Where has Said Barre ended? Where has Mugabe ended? And their families, and their generals, and their guns. So we ask those simple questions. So dictatorship all over, the experimentation, the current regime, it can take 50 years, but it's going to end up in failure.
Okay, I want to understand this. You want to overwhelm the regime in a ballot, right?
We are not overwhelming it. We are doing ordinary what other democratic forces have done. So they defy odds. That's what we call a protest vote. Go in knowing.
What are you doing that's been undone?
Do you go for prayers every Sunday? Do you read a different Bible? So Simon, don't be simplistic. Simple right things are repeatedly done until they yield results. Actually, if you want to fail, gamble on not doing the ordinary things. If you want to fail, gamble on not doing the ordinary things. What defeats a dictatorship is to repeat those simple things that weaken it every day. For example, if all you can do is to stand an election and expose it the way it happened in Kawempe, you've done your part. Then begins to question the ideological anchoring of his own party. Then Madam here sounds a sycophant and justifying everything. You are working. You are causing tremors in and disbelief. And I believe those are the simple things you can do. If Honorable Ssemuju can offer himself in an election, knowing he will sleep at a center for 4 days, but in a process, other Ugandans are saying, is this what we deserve? Can't we lead a better country? Do we deserve better? Aren't we better people? Aren't we better civilized? Is this what we are good at? And the sober Ugandans are asking those questions. All we do, we create an enabling environment for that discussion, for that introspection to happen. And for me, and for us, if that happens at a dining table, okay, as people are eating their supper, is this the country we want to live in? The answer is saying no. Is it that they are going to say you can't do anything? They'll say, but you can do something. Watch the space.
Well, there's been a history to protest votes. For instance, in Buganda, NRM was hugely bruised in the 2021 election. That was more of a protest. Now that they have declared formally that it is a protest, do you envisage NRM losing other regions?
No.
With the same punch?
No. Why? When NRM came here, and even when we formed the political party in 2003, 2005, there are parts of this country that didn't vote NRM. Kasese, you remember Ukunjiri, much of northern Uganda, Teso, they didn't. We engaged them. Civil democratic engagement alongside dealing with challenges facing them, material conditions, changing material conditions. Could be roads, could be schools, could be health, could be just the atmosphere for discussion. Since NRM lost Buganda in the last election, there are a number of things and discussions that are going on within NRM, as far as I know, the leadership of NRM at different levels, NRM and the people.
Kawempe showed you.
Kawempe is part of Buganda, but it doesn't represent the whole of Buganda. It represents a certain strand, not just Buganda, but urban centers in the country. So there are engagements that are going on between NRM and the people in Buganda and elsewhere. As somebody who is engaged in that process, I know that there are qualitative changes in that engagement that should improve the political and electoral stand and outcome for NRM in Buganda and other places, like it happened in Kasese, it happened in Rukunjiri, it has happened in the north and Western Nile and Lango and so on and so forth.
But do you agree that 2021 was a protest in Buganda?
Yes, yes. And I'm saying we are dealing with those. Shall we be successful? Perhaps not, perhaps yes. And I'm telling you, even today morning, I was in a different discussion about here and Busoga, and I am saying I seem to see positivity at the end of this engagement, which will culminate into selection of our candidates, into campaigning and winning the vote. Now, Muwanga Kivumbi would of course want us to go down the slippery road without a break. And I am saying that's why a number of NRM leaders, they may not speak out in the same fora as Ufono has spoken, but I can tell you that there are discussion going on the way things are happening. Is it the right way? Looking at where NRM has come from, I want to give reassurance to Ugandans that NRM is going to engage better with the public, with the population, some of the things you see recently happen will not be repeated, or if they are repeated, they'll be repeated as a mistake by people who don't learn, maybe, and for which, therefore, NRM will carry the consequences.
So, if NRM is suffering the consequences of your bad manners.
Yes, partly, because some of the things are deliberately done, but also done, even if it's not deliberate, done with carelessness. In the discussion, in the writing you're talking about, I said, for example, and then I said, there are things that NRM, a sense, in my view, taking the public, taking the voters for granted. I said that in my writing. I said that on the last show here. I said that there are things that we NRM leaders take the voters, take the public for granted. And if we continue to do so, and I have said this many times, I've said there was a party here called UPC everywhere. Now UPC is in only some places. There used to be a party called KANU in Kenya. It's no longer there.
It is there.
No, it's not there in the formation that it is. There used to be a party in Zambia called UNIP. So NRM has a history to pick from. Is it Honorable Ssemuju said, we say the ANC, African National Congress of South Africa, is our sister party. That's what NRM says. If you look at what happened to ANC in the last election, NRM leaders, if we are serious, and I think we are, should be able to pick those 4 lessons. Even the extreme examples that Honorable Ssemuju likes quoting, of Libya, of Sudan, of Egypt, of Syria, of Iraq. NRM people, if we are serious, we should be able to pick all those examples.
Well, very interesting.
And learn from.
Speaking bluntly, we might need to take a break.
I want to believe NRM leaders are not going to repeat those stupid mistakes.
We'll take a break.
Take on.